What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your R-Track Solo. Along with the interface, you also get this USB cable to connect your interface to your computer or laptop, and it also comes with these rubber feet that you can place on the bottom of the interface, but that's completely optional, so you don't have to use it. So before we set it up, let's go over the controls, inputs, and outputs for the interface. So on the front, you'll see you have two channels. So you have one channel that you can use to plug in your microphone, and then you have another channel to plug in any line level instrument or guitar. On channel 1, you also have a 48-volt switch to activate phantom power if you're plugging in a condenser microphone. And then you have the gain knob to control the input level for your microphone. So if you're in your DAW and you're recording your mic, but you feel like the level of that microphone is a bit too low, you're gonna wanna use this gain knob here. So if we take a look at each of these channels one by one, you have channel 1 here with the XLR input to connect whatever microphone you wanna use, whether it's dynamic or condenser. Next, if we take a look at channel 2, we have the 1/4-inch line or instrument input. So whether you want to plug in your line level instrument like a keyboard or an instrument like your guitar, you can plug that right into this input. Next up, we have the high Z switch. So if we're plugging in our guitar to this input, you'll want to activate the high Z. And again, we have a gain knob for channel 2 to control the input level for your instrument. Both of these channels have a peak light for when there's too much input level coming from either your microphone or your instrument or guitar. So if these lights come on, you may need to lower the gain knob so that you have enough headroom for your microphone or instrument. And we also have a volume knob for the headphones that you can plug in right underneath here. And on top we have the power light to let you know your interface is running. Next we have the USB power input that you can use with the included USB cable. And then we have the monitoring section, which is really important. So you have 3 different options here. You have DAW, mix, and direct. And basically all of these will control what exactly you're hearing through the interface. So for example, if I set this all the way to the left for DAW, this means we'll only be able to hear everything from our computer. So when you're using this interface with your computer and you have this switch flipped to DAW, then you're gonna hear everything coming from the DAW that you're using, like Pro Tools, Logic, GarageBand, etc., and also whatever browser that you're using with your computer. Then on the right we have the direct mode, and this will only allow you to hear everything that you have plugged into the interface, like your microphone or guitar or instrument. And while in direct mode, you won't be able to hear anything coming from your DAW or your browser. However, we do have a mix option so that we can hear everything from the DAW and direct at the same time. So in this mode, you can hear everything that's plugged into your interface and everything in your computer, like your DAW, browser, etc. And lastly, we have the output section here where we can connect our speakers. So we have an output for the left speaker and an output for the right speaker. And you'll want to be sure to use TS 1/4-inch cables to connect from your interface to your speakers. So one of the first things we can do to set up our interface is connect some speakers. To connect our interface to the speakers, we're going to need 2 1/4-inch TS cables. I'm going to plug one end of both cables into the left and right speaker outputs on the back of the interface. Then I'll take the other ends and plug them into my speakers. Just make sure whichever cable is plugged into the left output gets plugged into the left speaker, and whichever cable is coming from the right output gets plugged into the right speaker. The speakers that we're using today has both inputs on one active speaker, but you'll still want to match the left to left and the right to the right. Once you have your speakers all set up, you can connect your computer to the interface, turn the speakers on, and we recommend setting the volume on your speakers halfway, and then use the master volume knob on the front of the interface and set the volume however loud you want it in the room. So the next thing we can do is set up our computer to the interface, and we can do that whether we're using a laptop like this one here or a desktop computer. You also have the option to set up either a Mac or a PC, and we're going to be going over both setups. So first let's go over how to set up a Mac. So I'm gonna take the included USB cable, plug the USB-C end into the interface, then I'll plug the other end into my computer, and for this setup I had to get an adapter that went from USB-C to USB-A. So now I can take the USB-A end and plug it into my adapter. So the next thing we'll want to do is go into the sound settings of our computer and make sure to set it to the appropriate input and output settings. So to do that, I'm just going to go into the system preferences of my computer. Then I'm going to go into the sound preferences. And from here, we'll be able to change the output device and the input device. So we want to switch both the output and the input device to the interface that we're using, and it's labeled here as RUSB-ASIO. So in the output section here, I'm going to look for RUSB-ASIO, and I'm going to click on it like this. And now my output device is set to my interface, so everything coming from the computer will come out of the speakers connected to the interface. And next I'll want to switch the input device to the interface, so that way we can connect a microphone and have it read by the computer. So I'm going to go to the input section here, and same thing, I'm going to look for RUSB-ASIO to select the interface as the input device. Then I'll click on it, and now my input device is set to my interface. You'll also want to be sure to do this in the sound settings of whatever DAW that you're using. To learn more about how to set up your interface, we have a bunch of different videos you can check out, which include how to set up your microphone, instrument, etc. So after you're done recording vocals and you want to mix them into your track, you can then use the master volume so you can hear everything coming out of your speakers. But again, just make sure that the speakers aren't on if you're using a microphone to record. So to show you how to set up headphones, I'm going to take the end of my headphones here and plug them into the headphone jack. Then I'm going to raise the headphone volume here. If you're not hearing anything coming out of the headphones, you might want to double check the monitoring section here. If you just want to hear everything coming from the computer or your DAW, you're going to set this to DAW. If you just want to hear anything plugged into the inputs of the interface, you'll set this to direct. And if you want to hear both of these at the same time, you can set this to mix. So we also have the option to set up the interface to a PC like this one here. So to do that, I'm going to take the included USB cable, plug the USB-C end into my interface, then plug the other end into a USB-A port on my computer. Now, in order for the interface to work with the PC, we have to download drivers from the Rockville support site. So for that, you're gonna go to rockvillesupport.com. From there, you're gonna see the page that looks like this, and you're gonna look for the search by model button here. Click on it, start to type in our track solo. By this point, you should be able to see it come on here, so you're gonna click on that. You'll then land on the R-Track Solo support page where you have all of these tabs, and you're gonna go to the Downloads tab here, and then you'll be able to see a download link for the drivers for your R-Track Solo, so you're gonna click on that. Once you have it downloaded, you can go to the Downloads window and double-click on the driver to install it. If this window pops up, just ask for more info and click on Run anyway. When you get to this window, you're gonna click on Yes. Then you'll come to this installation window and you're gonna click Install. Then this will pop up once it's all done, and you're just gonna click on Finish. From there, the computer should recognize the interface once it's plugged in. So to continue the setup, we're gonna go into the sound settings of our computer, and we're gonna wanna set the output and the input device to the interface. So to do that, we have the sound settings open here. Then we're gonna go underneath the output section and click down on this tab. We're then gonna look for the device that reads RUSB-ASIO and click on it to use the interface as the output device. We're gonna do the same thing for the input device here, so we're gonna go to the input section, click down and look for RUSB-ASIO to use the interface as our input device. So now the computer will use the interface as the input and the output device, but you'll also want to do the same exact thing on whichever DAW you're using on your PC. So for example, we're gonna open up Audacity here. In Audacity, you're able to switch the input and output device on the top here. So we can change the output device by going to the speaker icon. Then we're gonna go to the drop-down menu here and look for the device that reads RUSB-ASIO. and click on it to use it as the output device. And then over here, we'll be able to switch the input device to the interface. And again, you'll want to go down to the drop menu, look for the device that reads R, USB ASIO, and click on it to use the interface as the input device. And now you're all set to use the interface to record in Audacity. To show you how to use the interface for recording, we're actually going to switch the computer out with a Mac, but keep in mind if you're using a PC, you're going to follow the same exact steps. So if you want to learn more about how to use the interface, we have a bunch of different videos you can check out. Keep in mind we're using a Mac for those setups, but the same principles will apply if you're using your PC with the interface. Now when setting up your interface to your DAW, you'll also want to check the sound settings here and make sure that it's set to the right output and input. So here on my DAW Logic Pro X, I'm going to go into the preferences, then I'm going to go to the audio window, and from here I can switch the output and the input device. So I'm going to go to this drop down here and look for the device that reads R USB ASIO. Then I'm going to click on it to set it as my output device. And doing that also switch the input device. So now I'm all set to use my interface with my DAW. So I'm going to hit apply to save my changes. And the last thing we'll want to do to set up our interface to our DAW is go to the back of our interface and switch the monitoring to DAW mode so that this way we can hear everything coming from our computer, including our DAW, through the interface. If you wanted to hear everything from the computer and everything that's plugged into the interface, you can switch the monitoring mode to mix, and this way you'll be able to hear both at the same time. And to set up the interface to the PC, you'll want to check out the breakout video we made on that. So now that we've got the interface set up to our computer, we can now go over how to set up a microphone to record some vocals, voiceovers, etc. So you have two different options here. You can either set up a dynamic microphone like this one here, or a condenser microphone, which we'll get back to in a bit. But first we'll go over how to set up a dynamic microphone. So I'm gonna take an XLR cable like this one here, and I'm gonna plug the female end into my microphone. Then I'll plug the other end into input 1, since that's the channel with the XLR input. The next thing we'll want to do is raise the gain knob for channel 1 so we can set up the input volume so that the signal will come across on our DAW. Then in the DAW itself, we'll want to create a new track and set it to input 1. So now if I talk into my microphone, check 1, 2, you should be seeing the level coming into your track here. And you'll want to pay attention to the level here on your DAW and the peak light here on your interface to make sure that you have the proper level. So if it's hitting the yellow or red area in your DAW, or if the peak light is flashing on your interface, you'll just want to lower the gain a little bit. Another thing to note is that if you have your speakers connected to the interface, you actually won't want them to be playing anything while you're recording. So the master volume knob should be all the way down. However, you can still use your headphones when you're recording, since that's a closed space and it won't be able to bleed into the microphone as much. We have the input for our headphones right here, and then above that we have the volume for our headphones so we can set how loud we want to hear. And then you're ready to record some vocals with your dynamic mic. Check 1, 2, so here's the sound of my voice with the dynamic microphone set up to the R-Track Solo. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. You can hear it nice and clear. So now if you wanted to set up a condenser microphone like this one here, the steps are going to be very similar. So we'll take our XLR cable, plug the female end into the mic, then plug the other end into input 1 on the interface. So the difference with this setup is we'll want to activate the plus 48 volt switch here on channel 1, which will give our microphone the phantom power needed to power the mic. So we're gonna go ahead and press that in, and then we're gonna raise the gain knob here to set up the input level for the mic. So for this mic, I'm gonna create a new track again and make sure to set it to input 1. Now if I talk again, check 1, 2, you'll see the level coming into our track, and again you'll want to pay attention to this and the peak level here on the interface to make sure if it's too loud. And now we're all set to use our condenser microphone to record. Check 1, 2, so here's the sound of my voice using the condenser microphone, still coming in nice and clear. Check 1, 2, check 1, 2. So if you see the level coming through your track but you're not hearing yourself through the microphone, just double check the monitoring section back here on the interface. Remember, you want to set it to DAW to hear everything inside of your DAW or computer. If you just want to hear everything you have plugged into the interface, you'll set it to direct. And if you want to hear both of those at the same time, you'll want to set it to mix. While you're using your DAW, you can set the monitoring to DAW, and you can also use the input button here so that this way you hear yourself through the track. But you won't have to do that at all if you set the monitoring to mix, because you're hearing everything from the interface and the DAW at the same time. So remember, input 2 also gives us the option to set up an instrument like a guitar or a keyboard. So for that, I have my guitar right here, and I'm also going to need a 1/4" instrument cable. I'm going to plug one end into my guitar, then I'm going to plug the other end into the 1/4" input of channel 2. So keep in mind, when we're setting up a guitar, we're actually going to want to engage the high Z switch right next to the input here. So now we're going to raise the gain knob for input 2, then we can go ahead and create a new track and set it to input 2. Now I'll raise the volume for my guitar, and if I play, you'll see the level coming through our track here. So now we're all set to record some guitar tracks, and if you have them, you can use an amp simulator to change the sound of the guitar. We can also use similar steps to set up a keyboard here. So I can take a 1/4" cable. For this, because there's only one 1/4" input available, I'm gonna use the mono output on my keyboard and then plug the other end into the 1/4" input. For this setup, we won't need the high Z, so we're gonna turn that off. Again, we'll wanna create a new track and make sure that it's set up to input 2. From there, we're gonna raise the gain knob so we can set the input level. And now if I play, you'll see the level coming through our track here. Remember, if you see the levels coming through your tracks but you're not hearing the instrument, you'll want to double check the monitoring section on the back of the interface. So if you want to hear everything from the computer and the DAW only, you're going to set this to DAW mode. If you only want to hear the things plugged into the interface, you're going to set this to direct. And if you want to hear both of those at the same time, you can set them to mix. The cool thing is you can plug in both your microphone and your instrument, set up some tracks on your DAW, and record both at the same time. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your R-Track Solo, but of course if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.